Hey everybody, how's everyone doing on this Wednesday? I am James Spencer. I am a Scale Partner Solutions Architect on the Scale PSA team here at AWS. And welcome to Howdy Partner. What is Howdy Partner? Howdy Partner is our weekly show. We bring partners on, our AWS partners come and showcase some of their cool solutions, cool offerings, actually show us ways to be more efficient with our time, way to have better security with our workloads. And join with me today is my teammate, Mr. Olabanji. How you doing, Olabanji? How's things?
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Hey James, good to be here and good to be on the show today.
So, Olabanji, who's coming on today? Was it start with an A or something?
Yes, you are right. We are going to be having our partners from Aviatrix come talk to us about CoPilot, and with that, I would like to also invite Brad from Aviatrix to come on the stream so we can get it going. Hey
Hey
Brad.
everybody. Hey everybody.
Hello.
How are you doing? Hey
Pretty good. Pretty
Olabanji. Hey
good.
James. Good to see you guys again.
So, what are we gonna look at today? It's I heard it's something that we can. It's like a kind of a one-stop shop for our AWS workloads. We can build with, deploy with it, monitor with it, troubleshoot with it. It sounds pretty impressive, to be honest. I can't wait to actually get a live look at it rather than just some still shots for sure.
Yeah, really what we're going to be talking about today is networking, cloud networking, networking and security. And so Aviatrix builds a platform for you to build a cloud network that runs in AWS as well as other clouds. And you can get a whole bunch of visibility from your traffic through it. You can provide a whole bunch of security controls. And there's just a lot of really a lot of push button easy things you can do, like inserting firewalls in between your traffic. Sometimes that can be kind of a tricky thing to do, and Aviatrix gives you tools to give that easy push button deployment of things like firewalls to really help you with the kind of that skills problem that most companies are having today, in the cloud, finding the right people who can do all the right stuff. So if you give those people the right tools, that's going to help them make their lives easier, and help things get done faster. So that's really what we're going to be looking at today is Aviatrix providing a network platform, and CoPilot is basically the visibility dashboard for that, as well as going to deploy new networks, um, deploy security controls, and we'll see some of that today. And got a cool little lab set up for you guys and kind of a demo. We're just going to walk through and poke around, and I'll show a few things
Awesome.
to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Anything to make things easier. I know you can always, when you're building out, you can always get lost uh, if you don't know exactly where to look for things. So
Yeah.
anything to make that better, for sure.
Well,
Why don't should I start by maybe sharing my screen for you guys, or what do you?
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
Okay,
Go ahead and
cool.
fire it
Yeah,
up.
let's do
I,
that.
I was going to ask a question before you do that, but while you do that, just a little so we can talk about. So, what are some of the AWS services that you have made use of while using this solution?
Yeah, why don't we do a quick overview of kind of what the Aviatrix platform is,
Okay.
and we'll talk about some of that. So, really,
Okay.
what we do is we run on EC2. We run basically a gateway instance on EC2, and customers would use this as an alternative to using the cloud native routers like AWS Transit Gateway, for example. So, you got a whole bunch of VPCs out there, and you need to route traffic between them. You need that traffic to get to and from the internet. So you really have to ask yourself, well, how am I going to do this? Well, I could use VPC peering, or I could use the native tools like the AWS Transit Gateway. And then Aviatrix provides an alternative to that provides some additional functionality in terms of visibility and security that we'll see. So it really all starts with the Aviatrix controller here. So this controller is deployed from the AWS Marketplace. And once that controller is deployed, then that controller will spawn these gateways into your VPCs. And these gateways here are what's running on EC2. And the controller is this really intelligent cloud networking aware platform where it knows the underlying cloud provider APIs, and it knows how to build things like building a VPC and configuring route tables and things like that. So it'll go deploy these gateways into your VPC, and then it'll go and configure your VPC route tables to send traffic through those gateways. So we do a lot with the AWS API, anywhere from EC2 to the VPC stuff, things like that. And then once your traffic is running through these gateways here that the controller's managing, these gateways then are sending a whole bunch of operational data to CoPilot, which is what we're going to look at a lot today. Things like NetFlow traffic visibility. So all of the sessions that traffic sessions are running through these gateways will be exported in real time as NetFlow to CoPilot. And then all the syslog data too will be exported to CoPilot. So you go here, and this is really my day two kind of operational visibility platform. Here's CoPilot. This is where I'm going to go to see what's going on, make some configuration changes, adjust some security controls, things like that. And Aviatrix really started with AWS. I mean, we've been an AWS partner for a long time, and when Aviatrix started, AWS, was the cloud, right? So we had a lot of native integration with other AWS services. Let me find one here. I think we've got one. Oh yeah, here we go. So here's an example of integration with GuardDuty. So AWS GuardDuty is, as you guys know, is a service that provides findings, security findings that may be a problem. Like, for example, IP addresses that are known to be bad that might be talking to things in your network, and GuardDuty is going to help you find those things. So GuardDuty produces these findings, and then it's really up to you as a customer to do something with those findings. And there's a number of ways that you could do that, right? You could use other AWS services to consume these findings and go do something about it. The Aviatrix platform, the controller, gives you an easy button for that. So we will consume those findings in the controller, and then the controller will then, if you want it to, go write drop rules into your Aviatrix gateways on the fly to block the known bad actors from getting into your network. And so that's one example of integration with AWS services. Another thing you can see what we're doing here too is there's that cool new feature in VPC where you can set up a it's called a like ingress routing, where when traffic comes in from the internet and hits your IGW on a VPC, you can have that IGW send all of the traffic to some next hop before it goes anywhere else in that VPC. So when you deploy this solution here, we are integrating with that IGW ingress routing capability so that all of that internet traffic comes through an Aviatrix gateway before it touches any of your EC2 instances, when they're on a public subnet. So that's another kind of cool. That's just one example. There's a lot of other examples like even the AWS TGW. If you want to use a AWS Transit Gateway, the Aviatrix platform can deploy a transit gateway for you and configure it, and you can set up domains and things like that. So there's a lot of different services that we integrate with on the AWS side, just because AWS has been around the longest, and Aviatrix has done really the most work with AWS and AWS services.
I love it, especially that kind of taking those findings from GuardDuty and giving you that kind of that single spot that you can look at everything and actually process it and everything.
Yeah. And like I said, there's other ways to do it, right? You don't need Aviatrix to do this, but if you did it, you're basically kind of in a builder mentality. So you might build your own solution to consume these findings using other AWS services. And some organizations are perfectly capable of doing that, right? They've got the people with all of the talent and capabilities to do that, but not every organization does. So they want an easy button, a platform to do that, and that's Aviatrix kind of gives you that right out of the box, just an easy way to do it.
I think everyone wants an easy button.
Yeah.
For everything.
For things other than just networking. Yeah. How about an easy button for my life?
For that, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could all ask, what is it, ChatGPT? Just, hey, can you fix
Right.
everything for me, please?
I was thinking about like That thing is pretty wild. I'm gonna play with it around. I play around with it this weekend, I think.
I think you should.
Yeah.
You really should. It's a great tool.
Maybe I could have it write my LinkedIn posts for me or something, or
You'll be
I'm sure it
surprised.
could.
You'll be surprised
Yeah.
at what it could do.
yeah. Or even create. I wonder if we can create PowerPoint slides.
Oh yeah, get rid of that. That's what we like to call the undifferentiated heavy lifting.
Right.
Get rid of that stuff for us.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild thing about AI is it's really taking all of the, like you said, kind of the how to out of the problem and lets you focus more on what you want to do and less about how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And right now it's art and things like this chat GPT, but this really is going to go into infrastructure as well, and even cloud infrastructure. I mean, at some point there's going to be an AI tool that basically sets up and your network for you in a best practice fashion entirely. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. And if you've got all the right tools in place, like automation with Terraform and things like that, and an awesome platform like Aviatrix, and all of that would be a potential thing in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, that's the Aviatrix platform in a nutshell. So, I mean, I could spend an hour with you guys, kind of going through all the things and all the slides and all the capabilities. But I thought we could, just kind of focus more on a real world kind of demo today and just kind of play around with it. And so I built this lab environment for you. I've got this running in my AWS account, and it's basically a typical setup here. I've got a couple of AWS regions. I've got US East 1 here, and I've got US West 2. And we've got some VPCs up here. So let's pretend I'm the Howdy Partner Corporation, right? And I've got some production apps. And so I've got production VPCs, and I've got some development up here, and I've got some shared services. I'm running basically a kind of a fake SAP HANA workload up in this. So I'm running SAP. I've got a web server here, which is basically a backend for a application load balancer that's in this Ingress VPC here. And you can see where I've kind of deployed the Aviatrix gateways, and we'll talk about that. So I'm using the Aviatrix transit here to route all of the traffic between these VPCs. And then I can also use the platform to provide like segmentation. All right, so I might not want my dev talking to prod. So we're going to be able to easily segment that using Aviatrix, and then also connecting to other regions, right? So we got our VPC over here in US West 2.
I was
That's
just
also
going to ask that question, if the VPCs are in different regions.
Yeah, this one over here on the left, well, my left is US West 2. Yep. So I've got a dev VPC over here. And so you can use the Aviatrix gateways to provide that inter-region connectivity. So the controller will deploy those gateways. I'll show you guys how that happens, and then it'll set up these connections here. So these big red bars are basically encrypted IPsec tunnels.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So all this is encrypted and secured. And then let's talk about too, like, actual costs, right? So in a typical organization, you're probably going to have many different departments and business units, and they're all going to be doing their thing in the cloud. And you're also going to have something like central IT and shared services, right? So you might have maybe some databases, or you've got some authentication servers, or maybe it's a direct connect to on-prem or whatever. There's some things that like a central team owns that is shared to the rest of our organization. And so what we want to be able to do is kind of figure out, like, what if that shared team wanted to bill back Department A and Department B for how much they used those shared services to help them get their costs under control, right? So, Department A and Department B here, the old days is, hey, yeah, we're going to go use the cloud, and this is great. All we have to do is spin up workloads, and somebody else pays the bill. There's some bean counter who's just paying my AWS bill, right? And this is awesome, right? So they're just going to fire up all these instances, and they're going to, run all kinds of traffic. But when you show some accountability for what they're doing by saying, hey, actually you're going to be paying for your AWS stuff, even though it's not in your account or your department. You're using our stuff. So that's this cost IQ I'm going to show you guys too. And that, so we'll be kind of running through these scenarios here. We've also got firewalls, right? So I want to insert a next-gen firewall in between the traffic between my VPCs. And we've got a Palo Alto firewall here sitting looking at all the traffic going between VPCs, going to and from the internet. And that was really easy to set up. I'll show you guys how I did that too. And then last but not least, other cloud providers, right? So if AWS is the biggest and best cloud, and most organizations are using AWS, but there might be some situations where another cloud provider needs to be connected to for whatever reason. Maybe it's an acquisition or something. And so you want to be able to connect to those other clouds as easily as you can. And the nice thing about Aviatrix is these Aviatrix gateways here, not only do they run in AWS, but they run in other clouds too. So you can just deploy your gateway in the other cloud, connect it to your transit, and you're done. It literally takes probably a couple minutes to do.
Nice.
I'll show you guys how that was done. So looks like it's gonna be pretty fun. I'll pull up my, one thing I wanted to do here is I'll start with my AWS account. So here I'm in my AWS account, and like, how do you actually get started with Aviatrix, right? And like, let's say you're not doing anything. You can just go to the marketplace. So we'll just go to AWS marketplace, if I can spell. And then
they dropped that link in there. I think it's the right link in the chat.
To the marketplace?
Well, to CoPilot specifically.
Oh yeah,
you mentioned
cool.
it, and I didn't even think of it, so I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
Put that on there.
Nice. Yeah. So what I do is I just go to the marketplace, and I'll go here, discover products, and then I'll just type in here Aviatrix. And here you go. Here's where you get started. So you just go to this one here, and then you just subscribe to this, and you subscribe to it. And then this, by subscribing here, you can actually deploy your controller right here from the marketplace into your AWS account. So that's what I did. So I deployed it into, let's take a look at my lab here. So I went into the marketplace, and I created a VPC that I want to put my controller in. I called it the controller VPC. And that's what I recommend as a best practice, is create a VPC off to the side. And that's where you're going to put your Aviatrix controller in there. And then so that brought me to here. So now I've got my controller up and running, and this is basically what our controller UI looks like. You got a lot of overall kind of visibility here in terms of the status of things, but a lot of ways to configure what you want to do over here on the left. But really what we're doing is we're trying to move away from the controller as a UI and more towards CoPilot. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here on the controller UI, only where necessary. But one of the first things that I did after I deployed my Aviatrix controller is I went down here to useful tools. Wait, I think it's settings. Here we go, settings, CoPilot, right? And so right here from the controller, you can deploy your CoPilot. So I already did this, but I can deploy in AWS right from the controller my CoPilot. And what the controller is going to do, it's going to go out to the marketplace, find CoPilot, and launch it into your account. And so now at that point, what you have is you've got your controller and you got your CoPilot. You haven't touched any of your VPCs yet, but you're ready to go at that point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I want to make sure I dropped the right link. Where'd it go? Was it the link for secure networking platform was the one you wanted to start with? I just want to make sure I have the right one.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of links. I could link to like the Aviatrix.
Yeah. I just want to, because it was the third one, I think you said, was it the secure networking platform metered 2208?
Oh yeah, maybe somebody else gave that to you, but that sounds right. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, cool.
I'll drop that in.
Yep.
Sorry, I got you off track there for a second. I just wanted to make sure I give people the right
no problem.
link.
I just like to go to the marketplace and do the search on it. But yeah,
Yeah.
having the direct link is nice too. So once you have your controller up and running, then you just go up here to this little widget here, and you click on CoPilot, which brings me to CoPilot. And this is really where we're going to be spending most of the time. Is CoPilot is your kind of your single visibility dashboard for all of your networking and security that you've deployed with Aviatrix. So if you're a network operator, network engineer, or architect, you'll come here and you're going to take a look, and you're going to get a lot of visibility across a lot of different areas, and have a lot of different security and troubleshooting tools, which we'll go through today. Now we can talk about deployment. So one thing you can do is, this is new here. So we've got airspace is basically what we're calling like the fabric that you build. Like when you deploy gateways and you link them all together, you know how every company has kind of like a cute little name that they give it, like, smart fabric or, whatever. So we came up with the name airspace, and airspace just means, your Aviatrix gateway deployment and how they're all linked together. So that's my airspace. And so now I can go deploy gateways right here from CoPilot. So I can go to gateways, and I can see all the gateways that I've deployed here, and kind of see what their utilization is from a CPU standpoint. I'll get to a little bit to that later, but I can just go right here to spoke and transit. So basically, transit is that transit VPC here. So this is basically a hub and spoke architecture, which is pretty, a common and familiar architecture for the cloud. Here's my transit right here. This is connecting to all of my spokes, and my spokes are where the workloads are running. So I got my SAP up here, my web servers. These are my spokes, and then so they're all going to connect to the transit. And then transits can link to other transits to get to like other regions or other cloud providers. So you would probably start by deploying a transit. And so I would come up here to transit, and I would just say, all right, let's go. Let's deploy transit. And just click plus here. And then you're gonna, give it a name, whatever it is. You pick your account, and then what region you want to deploy in, what instance size you want it to run on, whether you're going to do high performance encryption or not, and then if you have other transits that you've already deployed, it'll automatically peer to them right here, which is awesome. So you just check one of those, and then if you want to run an HA, you just click the plus instance here. And here I'm gonna actually deploy 2 transits in a HA pair, wherever I might be deploying this. Let's say it's the Ohio region or whatever. And then so you got your transits deployed, and then you can just go to spokes, and now you can go deploy your spokes, and these would be in your workload VPCs, right? So you can see I've got some here in US East, spoke 1, spoke 2, spoke 3. If I have a new VPC that came along, like a new VPC was configured, and I want to go deploy Aviatrix in, I can just click spoke here, give it a name, I might call it spoke 5, AWS account, the region, maybe it's in California, instance size, so on and so forth. Attach it to the transit automatically for me, right? So I just say, okay, I want this attached to, US West 2 or whatever, the VPC that it's going to run in. And here's a really cool thing now too, is we support horizontal auto scaling now of these spoke gateways. So in a particular VPC, you can have a group of up to 15 spoke gateways if you really wanted to or needed to, right? Most customers are perfectly fine with 2 in an HA pair, but if you want to go nuts, right, and just deploy a whole bunch, you certainly could, right? So we kind of support this now as this auto scaling of these spoke gateways in your spoke VPC, and then you would just deploy there.
So yeah, so if you wanted to be not HA but like HHHAAAAAAA, then
yeah. It's just like HA on steroids, right? Just like everything going nuts, and you've got 15 spoke gateways, and what the controller will do is it'll load balance as best as it can across all 15 of those. And how it's actually going to do that is it's going to go to the VPC route table, and on a per CIDR basis, it's going to put the next hop at one of those 15 gateways. So if you've got a bunch of subnets and a bunch of route tables, and then you've got your CIDRs like 10.0.0.8 or 172.16 or 192.168. The controller on a per CIDR basis will decide which one of those 15 gateways will get the next, or will be the next hop out of that VPC for that. That's how that's going to work. And then, if one of those gateways fails, and the controller knows that the gateway fails, and it'll switch that route over to another gateway that's still available.
Nice. And just to reiterate again, so all you had to do was click a button and you made it HA. It automatically just went to a different AZ or different region. Or
yeah, absolutely. You just go down here and you just click this plus instance button. When I click plus instance,
that's so cool.
Yeah, you can see I can pick the subnet that I want it to go into. So you do have some control over that. You might say, well, I want my one to be an AZA and the other one to be AZB, and so on and so forth. So you do have to provide some guidance there.
Yeah, that's easy enough, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty nice. And everything that you're seeing me do here in CoPilot, you can do with Terraform too. I mean, we have customers that don't even know what the Aviatrix, that they don't even know that we have a GUI. They just know that they've got their Terraform modules and they point to the IP address of the controller, and they live day in and day out on Terraform. And for example, I'll show you here. This is kind of an example of what that Terraform looks like. So, and we use these Terraform modules here. So we provide these Terraform modules, and I think I gave you a link to that to show folks.
Yeah,
but
I got it scrolling across the bottom. I'll pop it in the chat in just a minute.
Cool. Yeah, look at these lines of code here. So I've got, let's see here. What is this? Maybe 20 lines of Terraform code. And what's happening here is I'm deploying a transit into AWS. I pick the region. I created the VPC, or created the transit VPC. I deployed in AWS. I decide whether I want to run an HA. I decide if I want to do segmentation. I decide if I want to do firewall insertion. So here I just said enable transit firenet equals true. And then, pick the instance size. And then down here, I pick the firewall I want to run. Firewall image equals Palo Alto, right? So as soon as I run this Terraform code, the controller is going to say, oh, okay, you want a new transit VPC and you want to put Palo Alto firewalls in there. And everything. So it's going to build all that. It's going to go to the AWS Marketplace, deploy those Palo Alto firewalls for you into the transit VPC, and then it's going to associate those transit gateways with the Palo Alto firewalls. And then all you have to do is then pick what traffic you want to go through those firewalls. So
that actually, when we were going over it earlier, your diagram, and you did mention that it was a Palo Alto firewall. I was going to ask you, I was like, so how does that kind of fit into this? You just pop it in there and it grabs it from the marketplace for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the most push button easy way to do it, is to use the supported firewalls. It's not just Palo Alto, it's also Checkpoint, Fortinet, and things like that. But if you don't have one of those, let's say maybe you're using some other firewall, you could still use it for firewall insertion. It's just not going to be as push button, right? You'll have to register the firewall with the controller yourself, point it to its IP address and things like that. But that works as well.
Got it.
Yeah. So another cool thing I wanted to show you guys, I don't really have a lot to show you, but I want to tell you about is Edge, right? So this is, we talked a lot about transits and spokes. So this is all in the cloud, right? Transit VPCs and spoke VPCs. This all makes sense. This is all in the cloud. I'm building basically a cloud architecture backbone. But what about all those remote sites, like those branch offices, retail locations, your home, whatever, right? Those have often been treated as like a whole different environment. Like, I don't even know what's running out there. I've got to, figure out a whole different network platform for my remote sites. Well, what we're doing now is we're saying, hey, why don't you just take this basically this backbone that you built in the cloud and just extend that same operational model to those remote sites. So treat your retail site as just another VPC, or your branch office is just another VPC in the backbone you've already built. So we added this edge here. So basically you can say, all right, I've got a remote site. I've got a retail site, right? So I'm going to go deploy an edge there. So you would just say edge gateway. So an edge gateway is basically a spoke gateway that's running on a virtual machine at a remote site, or could it be even running on a physical appliance? And so you basically have Aviatrix deployed on-prem or in that site, and it just joins your transit, and you treat it like it's another spoke in your architecture, which is really nice. So it's really kind of getting you the goal of having less platforms to have to deal with to really just get done what you really want to do, right? Yeah. So
Quick question, Brad.
yeah,
I just wanted to talk about the architecture you showed earlier about the two transit gateways connecting via a VPN. Does the bandwidth constraint affect communication between those two endpoints, you think?
yeah. So these two transits here that are in different regions, they're connected together. And this is IPsec that's running here, IPsec VPN. So everything's always encrypted running through IPsec. Now, IPsec does have some limitations, right? And one of the limitations is that it's a single-threaded process. So it runs, if you're doing it on x86, which you are going to be doing in the cloud, right? This is an x86 machine here, and that's an x86 machine there. And an IPsec tunnel runs basically one CPU core. And that one CPU x86 core can only go so fast. So that's where that throughput limitation of 1.25 gigabits per second comes in. It's not that you're being artificially limited to that. It's because that's as fast as an x86 core can process an IPsec tunnel. So what we did at Aviatrix is we built a solution to that, and it's called high performance encryption. So what we do, and I think actually I'll show you guys a visual on that. If I can pull it up over here. Where is it here? Yeah, here you go. So what we do here is, here's my x86 core, and this is my gateway in region A, and this is my gateway over here in region B, and this is my connection. So what the Aviatrix gateways do is they build an IPsec tunnel, multiple IPsec tunnels for every single core on that machine on both ends. And so they make sure that the machine is using all of its processing capability for IPsec because it's using all the cores for IPsec. And then it takes all of those tunnels and it bundles them into a logical connection for you. So you get an aggregate throughput. So like an aggregate throughput of very high because you have all these individual IPsec tunnels that the gateways are load balancing across all of them. Now, every single individual line here is still an IPsec tunnel on a core, and so every single individual line is still kind of that 1.25 gigabits throughput. But in aggregate, you have a lot of throughput between these gateways because of that high performance encryption that we're doing, right here. And you can do that everywhere too. You can do it to your spokes, and you can do it, even to on-prem. I'm not showing on-prem here too, but you can run that high performance encryption to on-prem. So
Kind of like lag, correct?
yeah, it's kind of like that, lag or equal cost multipath. You could think of it. Now, and that's a good point too, because you might say to yourself, well, I could do equal cost multipath without this Aviatrix HPE. And in theory, you could, but the problem with that is now you've got a whole bunch of different individual network paths in your topology, and you might have a bunch of different devices to spread those paths across. So now your network architecture is getting a lot more complex. A lot of different paths, a lot of different
Overhead is
devices.
getting out of hand.
Yeah, I just want things to be easy, right? So I just want it to be easy, and I want it to work fast. So, with Aviatrix, you say, I want this gateway talking to that gateway with high performance, and just go do it. And the controller builds that for you. Cool. Is there let's see if there's any other questions in the chat or anything on that.
Nothing right now. Yeah.
Thank you for the excellent answer to the question, because some people want to know if the constraint with IPsec would affect communication between the two endpoints. Thank you very much for that.
It's actually an excellent question, yeah, because you have to really know kind of the underlying kind of details about how traffic is being forwarded so that you can better understand how it may or may not impact your specific application that you're running. So you might want to know, is my application able to use multiple TCP flows? And if it's able, and most modern applications can, and so if it's able to do that, then you've got multiple TCP flows on your network, and you can use all of the load balancing I just showed you to get that aggregate throughput. You might have some old application or a very niche application that all it uses is one TCP flow from one place to the other, and it's sending a whole bunch of traffic on that one TCP flow. And so that is something that would land on one of those individual IPsec tunnels, and it would have that 1.25 gigabits of throughput. So you want to, before you make a decision about the network architecture you use, it's really important to know kind of all these underlying details and understand your applications that are running in your cloud to see if there's a good fit there. So these are all kind of excellent questions, and something we really help our customers with is to say, all right, what are you guys running and how's it work, and making sure that they're going to make the right decision. And then this is new too, is the scaling, right? So now we can auto scale those gateways if we want to. So that was, if I go back to my diagram here, you're running production apps in these VPCs, and maybe there's certain times of the day that things get hot, or maybe you have an unexpected spike in traffic, and you want to scale out these spoke gateways horizontally. You can do that now, and that's a new feature that we support, and a lot of customers are asking for that. Because auto scaling is kind of what you expect from the cloud, right? And able to adapt to the changing conditions of your cloud workloads. So that's the auto scaling there. So that's kind of a new cool thing.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the main reasons to use the cloud is the scaling. I mean,
yeah,
that's one of the primary value propositions.
Yeah, absolutely. The kind of the ability to react and adapt in a most cost-effective way.
Yeah.
Now, once you've deployed all of your gateways, you've got this really nice topology map that we build for you dynamically on the fly. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, but basically what you're seeing is a circle here, and the orange represents AWS, and the different sections, the different pieces of this pie is different regions in AWS. So I can immediately see here, all right, I've got US West 2, I've got a transit deployed there, I've got US East 1, I've got a transit. And as I click on these things, it's kind of build it out there. And so I can see, all right, here's a spoke, spoke 3, what's in there? I can actually see the individual EC2 instances that are in that kind of spoke and the subnets, and I can begin to build this out. So that's, and the cool thing too here is you can actually use filters too. So if you just want to look at a certain thing, maybe you're just looking for a specific instance. Let's see, I got that test 3B there. Let me type in this test 3B. All right, yeah, there it goes. So now it's only showing me the topology that is relevant to what I want to see. All right, so there's my instance test 3B. There's a subnet it's on. And here's basically, it's on the spoke 3. It's going to spoke 3, right? So I can kind of narrow in on that, which is kind of cool. And then I'll just go ahead and clear this out, this filter out. One of the cool things too is that the Aviatrix platform is aware of the cloud service provider native tags on these instances. So you've got your developers that are out there going nuts, right? They're deploying stuff, and they're hopefully tagging things. I'm sure they're following all the best practices around following a tagging structure. So what you can do as the network architect is kind of, build your filters around those tags. So if I want to look at a specific thing here, I can do a condition, and in this condition, in my filter here, we can look at, where is it here? Here we go, CSP tags, right? So CSP tags, and I might say, so here's a tag called application. So application, and then the name, I've already created some tags there, application name, let's say SAP HANA. So now what I've done is I've filtered down my topology based on these tags that the developers are deploying when they go deploy, which is pretty cool, that we do that. And you can save these views too here. So you might want to, if you build up a filter and you like that view, you can save it. So, and you can save a bunch of different views and load them. So having a topology that's built for you, a topology diagram that's drawn for you, and it's always up to date. I mean, I can't tell you how awesome that is, right? I mean, nobody wants to have to maintain a PowerPoint slide or a Visio diagram of what the and it's only that PowerPoint slide is only as accurate as the minute that it was drawn, right? The minute you kind of
Yep.
close out that PowerPoint, it's already outdated, right? So this is what you want here, right? You want something that's always updated, and accurate all the time.
Now, someone were joking in the chat that we're tagging everything, right? Who doesn't tag? Is there a way that, like, say you did have a developer spin up something up without a tag? There are, you could use AWS Systems Manager or another service to notify you, but is there a way, like, the PM or sysadmin could be like, hey, who did this? Like, why is there no tag? Is there some sort of alerting that it would do, or something like that?
Yeah, for like the instances that are deployed, we're not going to like alert you on, hey, there's no tags or anything there. We'll consume whatever tags have been applied. But yeah, if you wanted to like get alerts on like misuse of tags or go tag them, yeah, there's probably other tools that would be better for that. So we'll consume whatever tags are there. But yeah, Aviatrix so CoPilot is not a platform that's trying to solve all of the problems in the cloud, right? Like, tagging and authentication, all those things, right? There's a whole bunch of problems in the cloud. We're focusing on one very specific problem. That's the networking and network security. Now, when it comes to the Aviatrix gateways themselves, yeah, we'll make sure that those are tagged properly, and you've got tags to work with there. But we'll do our best to work with the tags that the developers have used, and help you use filters around those.
Okay.
Yeah. Another cool thing we added to here is this builder, right? So, and this is in preview. Okay, so cross your fingers here, but I might want to actually go, deploy into a new region or something, like a new transit, new region, and I just want to have a place to mock it up and test it out. So, I think what I got to do here, let's say I want to, there we go. I had to zoom out a little bit. All right, so let's say I got a scenario. I'm going to go deploy in the Europe region, for example. I'm going to deploy my first deployment in the Europe region. So I just want to kind of see what that deployment would look like. So I'll pick my cloud provider, my account, and then I'll just say, EU, I don't know, West 1 here. And then I'll click Save here. So now I'm kind of ready to start building a transit and spoke in the EU West 1 region. And then so I'll just click the plus here on transit. And kind of like you saw before, I could create a transit VPC right here if I wanted. Give it a name and a CIDR range. I would give my gateway a name here. EU, West Transit, whatever I want to call it, right? And I would give it a gateway size. Decide if I want to use that high performance encryption or not, like I was talking about with that IPsec. You turn that off or on. Deploy an HA instance, and then I would just save that, right? I think I got to pick something here. I'll just pick something there and subnet, and then I just click save. All right, so now it's not actually hasn't done anything, but it's kind of ready to go. And now I want to go deploy a spoke and create a spoke VPC and what have you. Actually, I could do that now. I don't know, call this.
Quick question, Brad. For the transit gateways, how do you configure their ASNs and their CIDRs? Can they be the same and or overlap?
Yeah, let's go back. Let's go to that. So, good question. So the transit gateways. Let's go back to gateways here. We'll go to transit, and I've got two transit gateways here on my diagram. So I got these two here. Now, questions about ASNs and BGP and stuff like that. Now, I can pick any transit here, and I can do a whole bunch of settings here. And one of them is, let's see, we go to settings and routing, right? So settings, routing. So if I want to, here we go, BGP. So here's where I can set the actual AS number of that transit gateway if I want to. And if I was going to connect to some remote site that's using maybe some Cisco or Juniper router running BGP, I would need to set this, right? I would need to set an AS number, 65, I don't know, 1001 or whatever, and I would save it. Or I just do that now. Okay. So that's where I set that, and then I can do the BGP equal cost multipath to them if I wanted to, if I want to support that. Here's another cool thing too, is I can actually do ASPath prepending on a specific connection if I wanted to. So if I had a connection to some customer or partner and I was doing BGP with them, and I wanted to engineer that connection to use one path over another, I could do some ASPath prepending on a specific connection. I would just pad maybe my AS number a couple of times, and then I would pick the connection, and then I would just save it there, right? So you've got those kind of BGP controls at your disposal there. So yeah, you would just go do that on up here, in the transit, and then you go settings. You got a whole bunch of nerd knobs here for BGP, to really go nuts with, right? If you really wanted to. I haven't found that a whole lot of customers have to do this, but some do. But if you don't have any connections to some external BGP device, you don't really have to worry about BGP AS numbers, because that's the cool thing here, is that this is all a software-defined network, right? There's not any BGP running between its transit and its spoke gateway, or between transits. There's no BGP that runs between these transits or between this transit spoke. This is all software-defined by the controller. So I don't have to wake up in the morning thinking about troubleshooting BGP if I've got this cloud network here, right? That's just all kind of Aviatrix gateways. Once I connect to an external site that does run BGP, well then, yeah, I'll run BGP there, right? So I only have to worry about BGP where I really need to. That's the nice thing.
Okay, considering the fact that it's a multi-cloud platform, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you connect to another cloud. So here I am connecting to this other cloud, no BGP. All I did was deploy an Aviatrix gateway in that cloud VPC, and I connected it, and I don't have any BGP to worry about here. This is a software-defined networking between clouds, which is really, I don't know that anybody else is doing that, which is really awesome.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it makes it super easy to connect to other clouds. I mean, that's one of the real kind of core value props of the platform. But even if you don't have other clouds, there's a lot of, if you're just AWS, there's still a lot of cool things that you can get from CoPilot here and building out your Aviatrix network. Like, here's one of my favorite things. Well, here's the basis of a lot of cool things. So if you go to monitor here on the left in CoPilot, and you go to Flow IQ. Now, what you're seeing here is you're seeing all of the traffic that's running through my Aviatrix gateways coming into CoPilot, and now I've got a rich NetFlow dashboard here where I can drill down on all of the individual flows of my traffic over time historically. And I can just begin to click on things, right? I can say here, all right, my top source IP here is this. All right, let's click on that guy. And now I'm building a filter here. All right, so what is he doing? Who's he talking to? Oh, he's talking to this guy. What's the destination port? I'll just click destination port. Okay, it's this TCP 8000. I can begin to drill down as I click on these things. I'm building my filters in real time, right? So that's awesome. And then, so this information right here is where a whole lot of additional value is going to be realized in other areas like cost and chargeback and security and things like that, is that there's visibility of all this traffic. So, even like geolocation here, right? So CoPilot is geolocating all of that NetFlow data, and it's showing me right here, here's where, here, this is actually real, right? This is not fake data. This is my lab, and it's been up for a few days now, and I've got all of these different countries trying to talk to instances in my lab. And so I can look down here. So let's take a look. Okay, United States, that looks good. We got Russia and Germany, Hong Kong. Somebody from the Seychelles Islands is trying to talk to me. That's pretty cool. But I can I can drill down on that, and I can say, all right, let's take a look at Russia. What's Russia doing? So I built my filter around Russia, and now we can actually go back to my overview tab here. Here, my Russia filter is still active, as you can see. And now I can see these are just the flows from that country, and we can begin to say, all right, well, who's Russia talking to the most? This guy here, okay? What what port are they talking on? And I can look at all those things. So if you really want to go into the weeds on what all traffic is running through your network, you can do that here in FlowIQ. And now, without Aviatrix, you can build dashboards like this without Aviatrix, right? You could use your VPC flow logs, and you could send those flow logs to an Elasticsearch cluster or to an S3 bucket and through a Kinesis pipeline, and then send it through AWS QuickSight and all those things. And you could do all that stuff. And some customers have the skills to do that, and they've got the time to set that up, and then they'll make sure that it's operating well and things like that. CoPilot gives other customers that don't want to do it that way, just an easy button. Here, I didn't really have to do anything but deploy gateways and set up my CoPilot, and now I've got all this traffic visibility. So that's one of the kind of the value adds there, is just kind of the ease of getting to valuable data by having a platform kind of set that up for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would definitely enjoy easy buttons rather than having them. Like, just hearing you describe that, I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun thing to try and do and everything, but not everybody wants to have like fun in that way, right? They'd rather have fun doing something else, and they want an easy button to get their job done. And yeah, so now that you kind of see this, now I've got all of this data here. All right, so what can I do with this other than geek out in the FlowIQ dashboard? All right, I can geek out here, and this is great, but let's get to some actually useful things. So let's go to take a look at Cost IQ here. So, and I'm actually going to I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to build it from scratch for you guys, so you can see what I'm doing here.
Homemade.
Yeah, we'll do this. Hopefully the demo gods are going to be nice to me today. We'll find out, but that's always, there's nothing more exciting than doing live demos in IT, right? And trying to, do the big demo and everything. And it's kind of, it can really bite you, or it can really work out. But anyways, I just showed you all that FlowIQ data. So now what we're going to do is, let's go back to my diagram here. Here we at Howdy Partner Corporation, and at Howdy Partner Corporation, we're running SAP, and we've got a shared services AWS account that is hosting the SAP database, and Central IT owns that. And we also have an Ingress VPC that's going to take in all the internet. So this Central IT has resources that they are paying for that other departments are using, and so those other departments, they love it, right? Somebody else is paying the bill for that stuff. But maybe it's time now to show back, or at least charge back, what they're using of these shared services, to maybe influence behaviors to have them reduce costs. So, you might want to figure out, like, well, how can I do that? How can I figure out who's using the most of my shared VPC of all of the other AWS accounts out there? We'll give you an easy button for that. So I'll show you that show that to you here. It's Cost IQ. All right. So in Cost IQ, you start by creating cost centers, right? This might be my department. So I'm going to create a cost center here. I'm going to call this Department A, right? Somewhere I can send the bill. Okay. So now what we do
Not
is
here.
Exactly.
Away.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So how you pick out these cost centers and that's another thing. Are you actually going to send them a bill or not? I don't know, but we're going to give you the data if you really wanted to send them a bill. It's all about, if you're going to send somebody a bill, that bill better be accurate. Right? You better have some defensible data behind why you sent somebody a bill. So that's kind of the whole thing here, is we're trying to give you that accurate data. as best we can. So like Department A, you would just pick what VPCs they're using. So, okay, Department A is using VPC Spoke 1 there. Okay, great. So we'll create Department A, and then I'm going to create Department B now. I don't even know what AWS accounts they have. I just know what VPC they're using. And Department B is using Spoke 2. Okay, cool. And then let's do actually Department C. Department C is running in that other cloud provider. So I'm going to pick that other cloud provider's VPC there. We'll just click save. All right, so great. So now I define my departments. Okay, fine. Where the value really comes in is now we're going to define the shared services. All right, so my SAP database, I'm going to call this SAP HANA, that everybody's using. I'm going to define it by an IP address. And so I'm going to put in the IP address of my SAP database. And that's the shared service everybody's using. And then there's also a connection to on-prem. So that on-prem, there's a direct connect, right? And everybody's using that direct connect that gets on-prem, and there's costs for that. I'm getting a bill for the data on that direct connect. So what I can do is define a subnet on-prem, and let's say my on-prem is 10.13.101.0/24. That's my on-prem subnet. So any traffic going to that subnet, I know is going to be using my direct connect, and that's a shared service. So I'll just go ahead and set that up. So now what I can see is who's talking to these shared services. So if I select my SAP HANA here, I've got a quick visual of the different departments here, Department A, B, and C, and who's using that endpoint the most based on the network traffic that we've observed in FlowIQ. So we did all the math for you, right? So we know the VPCs are coming from. We know what they're trying to get to. We can look at it over a period of time here, just the last hour if we wanted to. And I've got a quick visual of, all right, so if I really wanted to send these departments a bill for, I might even send them a bill for the SAP instances, or just the network traffic charges, whatever you want to do. I now know how I can break that bill up, right? And I've got some data here to work with. And so that's what CostIQ is doing, is just kind of giving you that view of cost centers and departments and who's using the most of what. So if you go to charge back, you know who gets the bigger bill and who gets the least bill. Like Department C here, Department C is barely using that SAP database. Why should they pay 1/3 of the cost when they're only using 10% of it? So that's kind of the whole idea here behind CostIQ.
That's nice.
Quick
Yeah,
question.
like you can argue. People could argue about like, I don't want to pay your bill, and then you have the data line by line of exactly. Now you use this. You had this many requests. You had this much. That's great. I love that. Sorry, Olabanji, I cut you
Yeah,
off.
no worries. Thank you very much, Brad. So other than being able to view in real time how packets are flowing and how what's doing more work and what's doing less work, and trying to use that to aggregate your cost, is there a way to log the information that we get from this solutions, this monitoring solution? So in case of uh, troubleshooting or wanting to audit the infrastructure.
Yeah. So from a cost standpoint, what I was showing you with CostIQ, so we've had this question before, is how can I get this data out of here and use it somewhere else? So you can export this into a CSV file right now. I know that sounds kind of kludgy, and it is, because this is version 1. This is basically CostIQ right off the truck, minimum viable product. So yeah, you can export this into a CSV file, but as we develop this more, and what we want to do is get to APIs, right, where you should be able to ask CoPilot this information in an API and get it all back, as a one example. So that's, we hope to get to that point there. So that's just from the cost standpoint. Now, I think your question around auditing also is applicable to a lot of other areas too, which, one main area, and I don't know if this is kind of part of your question or not, Olabanji, but like the actual infrastructure changes, right? Who's doing what? and what happened and when and what changes were made. That's something everybody wants to get a better handle on. So if we go back to our topology here, so here's my topology, and I might want to know what happened, right? So there might have been an outage at 3 o'clock in the morning, last Friday, and we need to get to a root cause analysis, right? The CEO wants an RCA as soon as possible. So that's all about having data of who did what and when. So the cool thing here is we have this replay feature here, and this is like basically a DVR for your cloud network. And when I say DVR, what I'm talking about is not only the topology, but the changes that were made at a given time. So you can see down here this timeline, and what I can do, I think I can do, yeah, I can narrow this timeline down, and these little blue dots are events. Where's my other side here? Oh, there we go. There we go. I'm using my mouse wheel. There we go. All right, so I narrowed down the time, and then so I can see right here, I can expand this out. And if I click on this event, so there's an event happened right here. If I click on this, I can see exactly what happened at that time, and or what the state was and who did it. Any changes that were made, and it's kind of circles here the area of the topology that was affected by those changes. Excuse me. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. I was deploying this lab, so I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here right now, but you get the idea. So
Yeah.
if kind of somebody came in, or here's my baseline. Okay. All right, here we go. Yeah, I think I'm kind of building stuff out here. Yeah, you can see that, okay, I created VPCs. So this is giving you kind of that view of what the state was and what changed. And then if I click on audit here, I believe that's going to take me, yeah, it's going to take me right to an audit of who made that change. And it looks like this is a change done by CoPilot at this specific time. So this audit dashboard here is showing you all the changes that are being made in the environment and who's doing them and what was changed over last day, last week.
When you say who's doing them, you're talking about the IP addresses of the person calling the APIs?
Actually, usernames, right? So yeah, usernames. So I'm seeing things here that CoPilot is doing. So CoPilot's going to do things on the controller because it has to. It's part of its kind of job, and I could find this logs. But if I logged into CoPilot myself as a user, which I would have my username there, and I would see something like Brad. Brad did this, right? He did this change at this time, and here was his IP address and things like that. All of that would be tracked here in this audit panel here.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Another thing we're talking about audits too is like actually auditing compliance. So maybe at Howdy Partner Corporation here, we have to maintain compliance, and we have to make sure that our dev is never talking to prod. Maybe we're trying to some compliance there, right? So we need to prove to an auditor that we've done our job in segmenting dev from prod, and so that we're compliant. So Aviatrix gives you another easy button for that, and that's over here in, let's see, programmable intent security, network segmentation, okay? So you can see here I created production, shared services, and development. And when I create these domains, I assign the spoke gateways that belong to that domain. And then here's the transit that they're in, right? And then I say who they can talk to. So production can talk to shared services, right? And then so if I go to shared services, I've assigned these spoke gateways to shared services, and shared services can talk to production and dev. So you can see how easy that is to build out. Now, where it gets nice is these views. So now after I've done all of that, I've got this logical view here of development, prod, and shared services. So if I've got an auditor surfing my shoulder right now, asking me to prove to them that I've segmented dev from prod, I'll say, yeah, no problem here. Let me show you this dashboard real quick. And I pull up CoPilot, go to security, logical view. Here's my dev, prod, and shared. And actually, here's a logical view here. So based on my current configuration state, you can see that production does not have any connection to dev. Now they're both connected to shared services, but there is no connection from prod to dev there.
If you don't mind me asking, I'm sorry, this is another question just to further dig a little deep in there. How do you enforce confidentiality between the separate VPCs or account using a single transit gateway? Because I see that you have a separate transit gateway in each region, but in some particular regions you have more than one VPC, correct? And
Yeah.
if you wanted to separate connection between those VPCs using a single transit gateway, how do you enforce that confidentiality?
Yeah, so I think the question is getting around to what is the actual mechanism we use to do the segmentation? And so what we do is we actually enforce the segmentation at the spoke gateway. So if we say that dev cannot talk to prod, the controller is going to go to the dev spoke here, and it's going to configure that spoke gateway such that it doesn't have a route to production. So my SAP app here could send packets all day long to the spoke trying to get over here, and it's going to get dropped right there. In fact, I wonder if we can actually see that. So this VPC is 1012, and this one's 1011. So let's take a look here. So I'm going to go to routes, cloud routes, and I'm going to look at gateway routes here. All right, so Spoke 2 is in dev. So the Spoke 2 gateway should not have a route to 1011. So let's see if that's the case here. So gateway, where's Spoke 2? Here we are, USE Spoke 2. And hopefully, I'm not going to see. Wait, okay, here's my routes. 1012, 1010, 1012, 1013. And that's it. So you can see right here that Spoke 2 does not have a route to 1011. And that was intentional. That was intentional because I set up that segmentation. Now, if I look at a shared services one like Spoke 3 is in shared services and it can talk to production. So let's take a look at Spoke 3.
First of all, just let me commend Aviatrix on that. This is an amazing user interface. And what I'm used to is normally going inside of the route tables and just configuring routes of communication. But this is an amazing user interface where you can just check to see what's able to communicate with what and what's not able to communicate with another.
Yeah, I have to give all credit to the CoPilot team. The CoPilot has come a long way. I don't know if you saw CoPilot earlier this year.
Yes, I have. I actually saw a blog with you and Josh as well sometime, I think last year on CoPilot.
Yeah, I mean, it was good then, but the UI has been improved so much, and there's been so much capability that's been added to it that it's one of the more exciting things, I think, is just kind of all of the capabilities here. So that's why I wanted to show you. That's why I wanted to spend the day showing you guys CoPilot today is because there's a lot of cool things to show. So, and then let's go back here. So here I'm at shared services, Spoke 3. You should be able to talk to production. So the Spoke 3 gateway here, should have a route to 1011. So let's go check. And so I'm on the Spoke 3 gateway, and here's the routes. And yep, there it is, route 1011. So that is how the segmentation is being enforced, is at the spokes. The transit doesn't have to worry about it. Now, that's a nice thing. Now, so that's basically kind of a long-winded answer to the whole topic of auditing, right, and compliance. And you got things like this segmentation and trying to be compliant to regulations, and you've got root cause analysis and accountability for changes that are made in the infrastructure. And then you have accountability for costs, right? So we're able to show you all this. We're able to show you kind of that across those 3 different dimensions with CoPilot. So let's see. One other thing that I wanted to show you, or some other things here. Here's a cool thing that I want to show you guys is threat protection. Right. So we saw all of that NetFlow data that was in FlowIQ, and in that NetFlow data, there might be some bad actors. There might be some things trying to talk to my cloud network that shouldn't be. So we've got all of the information and the capabilities to do something about it right now. So we can see the IP addresses, and then what CoPilot has on it. CoPilot has a threat intelligence database right on CoPilot that's updated every hour of these bad actors. So it's going to compare what it sees in my NetFlow to that database, and it's going to raise an alert for me. And we see that here in the dashboard here. So this little map here that's blinking like a Christmas tree, this is all of those threats that CoPilot has found that is trying to that are trying to penetrate into my lab network right now. So it's showing me where it is, and then if I just go to security and then threat IQ up here, I get some more details on that. So what are all these actual threats? So I can see the classifications of those threats and the kind of the trend of the threats here. All right, now give me some actual details on the actual threats. Well, here you go, line by line, each individual threat. So the red IP address here is the bad actor that CoPilot found. And then here's who it was trying to talk to. Actually, this 1019 is a load balancer in my Ingress VPC. All right, so I got somebody trying to hit my load balancer. And let's view some details on that threat. So what's the actual NetFlow data that generated that threat? I can see that here. And why was this a threat? Well, this IP address has been found to be in a poor reputation IP group. So I might want to do something about that, right? So I don't want this stuff talking to my stuff in my cloud network. I want it shut down immediately. So how do you do that? Well, one way you could do it, as I showed you guys earlier, was you've got the guard duty and then guard duty findings. You can consume those findings and do something about them. You could use AWS services to do that, or you could use the guard duty integration of Aviatrix has. What I'm showing you here is another solution called Threat Guard, where we have all the information here. We know the bad IP address. We know where it's been on the network. So let's actually go block this traffic right now. So, without having to wake anybody up at 3 o'clock in the morning to write a security group rule, CoPilot can just do it for me. So if I go to, let's see, Threat IQ, and I think it's the top here, and I go to Configuration. So one thing I can do is I can first have it send me alerts. Send me alerts to an email address. All right, fine. At least alert me about it. But the next step I can take now is actually blocking the threat. So if all I have to do is click this checkbox here, pick which VPCs I want to protect. I'll just pick them all and save. And now it's warning me here that it's going to actually start blocking traffic. Are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So the moment I click that, what's happening now is CoPilot is looking at all of those threats and knows what gateways it saw those threats on, and it's going to go write drop rules into those gateways to start blocking that traffic right now. And any traffic that it sees in the future, it's going to do that. So this is nice. So now I don't have to, have some kind of human process involved to block these threats. So we can just have CoPilot do it for me. So what we'll see here in a minute is as it builds out those rules, it's going to populate those rules here, and I'll be able to see them. And yeah, there we go. It's starting to write these rules here.
Nice.
So if I want to look at the rules, so it already blocked 14 threats for me. So let's take a look at the data on those. So here is the actual drop rules that have been put into the gateways here. This gateway here, Ingress PSF gateway, I'll go back to my topology. It's this guy right here. So remember I was telling you guys earlier about that integration we do with AWS Ingress routing, how we can protect a public subnet. Well, this is a great reason to do that, is so that you can get ThreatGuard protecting your public subnets in your Ingress VPCs. Because now every packet that comes into my IGW here is going to go through my Aviatrix gateway before it touches anything else, like my load balancers from EC2 instances, and we're going to be able to block it right here before it gets any further using ThreatGuard, and so that's what we're seeing there.
So you were saying that you, based on your rules, you right that it can actually do that blocking like automated for you, so you don't. So if you're on call, you won't get the ping at 3 a.m, like you said, or
Right.
That's nice.
Yeah, actually, let me demo that for you. I'll show you a demo. So let's go to let me go back to my EC2 instances here, and I'm going to get on my SAP HANA database server, which is, where's that guy? It's right here. Let's get on the console of this thing. All right, so this is a production mission critical app, and you probably want to keep this thing secure. So I'm going to go into sudo su ec2 user here, and we'll just clear this. All right. So where's this at my topology? It's this thing right here. So this is my SAP database, my pretend SAP database, and you don't want this thing to get infected by a botnet. You probably don't want data exfiltration to happen here either. Yeah, I mean, you don't want anybody. You don't want to. This is the crown jewels of the business. You don't want a bad actor on the internet, having some sort of control over this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this talk to a bad actor. So I've got one here that I found. So this IP address here is a Tor edge node, and I'm going to check. I don't know if you guys have used this site before, abuseipdb.com.
No, but I love the name.
It's got this cool little black hat crossed out logo, but yeah, this is a kind of free for anybody to use. If you're suspicious of an IP address, you just put it in here, and it will tell you, like, is it bad? Yes, it's bad. 100% rating of abuse. And here's the reasons down here. Like 15 minutes ago, here's some abusive content scan 4 hours ago. DDoS attack on versus.com 7 hours ago. So this is an IP address that should not be, that my crown jewels of my business should not be talking to for whatever reason. So let's talk to it. So I'm going to go ahead and curl this address from my SAP system here. Where are we at? Right here. Okay. So we're going to do a curl HTTP, and I'll paste that in. All right, so you can see I connected. So this is actually, there it is. This is a Tor node here. It's in New York, I believe. All right, so this is a system that is designed to obfuscate the identity. And so this is not something that you want to be talking to. Maybe my SAP database got infected and is now talking out to a botnet of some kind. So at this event here, your normal systems might say, hey, your SAP database just talked to this bad IP address. You better go do something about it. And that is where you page the person at 3 o'clock in the morning who hopefully isn't intoxicated or anything, who can actually roll out of bed and write a security group rule, right? And knows where to put the rule and things like that. And it might take that person an hour, right, to actually go do it, because they have to get out of bed and all that stuff. Wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to do all that? So I connected that threat. So now let's go back to CoPilot and let's see if it found it. So I'm going to go to overview here, and let's sort by the most recent threats. And is this it here? I think this is it. 104 and 192, 374. Is that the one I did? Yeah, it is. So there it is. So CoPilot found it as a threat. So now what I expect is that CoPilot has written a drop rule into those gateways. So let me go to configuration here. And sure enough, there we go. So spoke 3, it found it. I bet you that's mine. So let me go click on that, view, and there it is. Drop rule is written for me. And so I bet you now, let's go back to my system here. I'm going to try this curl again. Denied. So that all happened in probably less than a minute and didn't have to wake anybody up. This is like, continuous protection that you're getting. And this happens fast enough to shut down. Maybe this was some sort of data exfiltration attempt, and it was shut down before before more damage was already done.
Nice.
Yeah. So all of that was possible because we have all of that NetFlow data, and we have that threat database that's on CoPilot, and we have the gateway. The gateway's there that we can configure and write a stateful drop rule into that gateway to drop that traffic. So that's just another example of kind of those. When I said earlier today, we're going to talk about network and network security and kind of a lot of rich tools and capabilities. That's just one example of it, is that automated threat protection. Now, again, could you do that without Aviatrix? Sure. You could, consume those guard duty findings. You could build your own solution to consume those findings and write drop rules into firewalls. And now you're kind of in the business of supporting that solution, right? Is it running well? Is it deployed right? Is it performing well? If it breaks, who's going to fix it? Whereas using a system like CoPilot, that's provided by Aviatrix, it's engineered to work. And if it doesn't work, you open a support case and it gets fixed. And it just works right out of the box. So that's kind of one of the reasons why customers would choose to use Aviatrix versus kind of building their own little mousetraps to do things like this.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, it goes back to you learn in CS 101. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Someone else did it. I mean, maybe it costs a couple bucks, but in the long run, you save way more for sure.
Yeah, you save in human hours, basically, right? I mean, human hours to the skills that you need, the talent you need to deploy those things, the number of hours it takes. These are things that definitely all add up, especially in these times that we're in right now, where everybody's being asked to do more with less. So if you're asking people to do more with less, you better give them the right tools to do things. And so that's why I kind of like Aviatrix as well. Is we're the tool that helps you do more with less.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things I could show you guys. I probably would spend another 2 or 3 hours with you. I know we don't want to spend that much time on the stream, but is there anything else that you guys wanted to maybe see or talk about? There's a lot of stuff going on here, or if not, I can show you a couple of other things.
Yeah, we still got a half an hour, so
okay, cool.
Use up that time. Let's see more cool stuff.
All right, yeah, let's take a look at troubleshooting. So we'll do.
Oh yes, that sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat said Warren Buffett makes money while sleeping. Aviatrix secure cloud when admins sleep. I think that's a good one.
We get a little bit more sleep, hopefully, that night, right? Nobody's paging us at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, I knock it on wood. That's the idea anyway, right? But
yes.
Troubleshooting, that's a big pain in the butt sometimes, especially when you're dealing with cloud networking, because in the old days of on-prem, where you had kind of the switches and the routers, it was very easy to see, okay, there's the switch, there's the router, let's log in and check things. In the cloud, in cloud networking, you have so many different things happening. You have a whole bunch of different accounts, right? And each account has a whole bunch of different VPCs, and each account has all the kinds of different security groups and route tables and network ACLs and all of these VPCs. And so you've got a lot of these elements that have to be configured correctly. And then, so imagine that. And now another cloud provider is introduced into the picture. Now you have to go, and that's another thing too, is every cloud provider does things entirely differently. So you might figure out how one cloud provider does security groups and ACLs and NACLs. And then when you're asked to connect to another cloud, you have to figure out how they do it too. And so you're learning, you basically learning how to walk again in that other cloud. So when it comes to troubleshooting, what we're going to show you here is how CoPilot can help you do that troubleshooting. So let's take an example here of, I've got an instance here in my VPC, and I'm going to try to connect to some other instances here. I'm going to try to ping this guy over here in US West 2, because that connectivity should work. And I got a ticket from a developer saying it's not working. So let's go ahead and try this. So I'm going to jump on the console of this instance here, and we're going to just first validate that the connectivity is not working. So we'll go back to my AWS account, and let's go back to my instances. And I think I call that, I think that's this guy here. Yep, that's the IP address. Okay, so let's jump on this console. And so here we go. I like to just jump into the EC2 user type. Okay. All right, so now I am supposed to be able to ping, what address is it? It's this 1051.5.126. Okay. So I'm just going to copy that here. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so you can see that's not working. So this should be working. So what do I have to do now? I have to go look at, normally I'd have to go look at a bunch of different accounts, cloud accounts, figuring out what VPCs are involved, what security groups are involved, what route tables are involved, what NACLs are involved, and look at each individual one and see, is it configured correctly? And just try to draw this mental map in my mind of if things are working. So that's kind of that's the old way to do it. Now what you can do is you can just basically go into CoPilot, and you can use a tool called AppIQ. So let's go here, troubleshoot AppIQ. And well, what am I doing here? Here we go, flight path. We're going to use a tool called flight path. So all I have to do is pick the source instance and then the destination, and we're going to run a test. So my source was that pub test 1 instance, right? And my destination was that it was a 1051 address. There it is. I think it's this one here, right? Was it? Yeah, 1051.5.126. There we go. And I was trying to ping. So protocol ICMP. I was doing it on private addresses. All right, let's run an AppIQ port. So what's happening at this very moment now is CoPilot is analyzing all of that stuff for me. It's analyzing the security groups, the route tables, the NACLs. It knows what accounts to look at, which VPCs. And it's going to tell me if it's all configured correctly and draw out a topology map for me. So here's the topology of that flow, and I can see what gateways it's running through, the latency between those gateways, what VPCs it's running through. That looks cool. Here it's going to give me all kinds of performance metrics on the Aviatrix gateways that flow is running through. So I can see if there's a potential problem here. So I can look through all of that. Looks like things are, looking just good there. Here's a cool thing too, is it can actually look into Flow IQ and say, is anything else talking to this instance? Well, yeah, it is. It found some data in Flow IQ. Okay, cool. Is the source talking? Yes, it has. Have these two instances ever talked before in the past? And you can see that in Flow IQ, we found that they have talked in the past. So that's good information to know. So now here's where we get to a detailed analysis of all the network ACLs and all the route tables and all the security groups in the path. So we start from the source. The network ACL looks good. And so CoPilot said, yeah, this looks good. It gives a little green here to say your ACL is fine. It's allowing traffic. Your route table in that source VPC is fine. It's got a route to 10. That looks good. Your security group looks good. It has an outbound rule that allows everything. The route tables in your Aviatrix gateways, it checks those too. Yep, that looks good. It's got a route to 1051. Looks good. Checks the route in your transit gateway. Looks good there. The transit gateway's got a route to 1051. All right, so now we're getting to the destination. So in the destination, the network ACL, inbound network ACL looks good. The route table in the VPC in the destination looks good. It's got its local route to 1051. CoPilot found a problem, so it failed. It found a fail on my security group. So I can see here the security group on that instance does not have a rule. It only has outbound rules. It looks like it doesn't have any inbound rules that allows any traffic. So that's why my ping is failing. So it gives me a link right here to that security group. So all I got to do is basically just click on this link, and it's going to bring me right to the security group that I need to fix. So here we are, inbound rules. Yeah, see, sure enough, there's no inbound rules in the security group. That means nothing's going to happen. So I'll do an edit inbound rule. Let's say let's say all traffic from 10 is allowed, and just do that, right? So now if I go back to my machine here we go, problem solved. So, how long would that have taken if you were to jump from one console to the next, to the next, and the next, checking?
I could tell you from experience, a really, really long time.
Yeah. I spent a number of years in AWS support before I came to AWS. Again, these cases would come in and it would be,
A nightmare.
a nightmare. A lot of them would just be, comes down to something as simple as this. We have one customer that tells us that 90% of their tickets that come into their cloud support desk are as simple as this. They're a security group misconfiguration, a route table, NACL, or something's wrong.
That's why I mentioned earlier how you're able to separate traffic, because imagine you have like 10 or 20 VPCs and you want some of them to be able to communicate with each other, and you don't want some of them to communicate with each other, and you're dealing with transit gateways and the route tables. It can quickly get out of hand and just displace everything you're trying to do.
Yeah, it just makes troubleshooting a lot more complex, right? It's just really nice to have a platform that knows how to look at those cloud constructs and just tell me if something's wrong.
Somebody asked a question in the chat: does Aviatrix have show IP config in their CoPilot solution?
Show IP config.
No,
Yeah.
show IP route is what they said.
Oh yeah, show IP route. Yeah, let's go back to CoPilot and see what we can do. So I want to look at routes. So let's go to CoPilot here. And when we're talking about routes in cloud networking, there's a lot of different routes that we're talking about. You've got VPC route tables. You've got route tables in your gateway, in your transit gateways that are routing between those. And these route tables are all over the place. So it's not as easy as just doing a show IP route on something and seeing everything. Now, you maybe at a central point you could. So what we do here is we have this thing called cloud routes in CoPilot. So I go to cloud routes here. Now I've got a lot of different routes to look at. I could look at the routes on my gateways. And so we can do that here, and I can actually search on them too. So if I want to say, I want to find the route 1051 00. If I can type. There we go. All right, so where's the route 105100? Here's all of the Aviatrix gateways that has that route. So we're going to basically give you all of the gateways here, and you can look at each individual route on those gateways if you want. Now, VPC route tables, that's a whole other animal. And so we aggregate all of that for you into one place that you can search. So yeah, I want to find the route 1051 in my VPC route tables. And sure enough, I did that here, and it's showing me all of my route tables that have 1051. And this makes sense. This is US West 2 Spoke 1, and that is where the 1051 network is at. If I just take this out here. So this is actually kind of like your show IP route. When you would do show IP route, you would say show IP route, and then you would say something, right? Like 1051, and you'd want to see where 1051 is. This is kind of like show IP route, 101100. Where's it at? Okay, here it is. It's in spoke 1, and it's in all of these route tables here in spoke 1. That's another thing about cloud networking too, is it's not just one route table. You could have a VPC with 10, 20, 30 different route tables and a bunch of different subnets, and you got to match, the subnet to the route table. So trying to get a handle on all of that can be really, where do you run your show IP route? Well, this kind of is how you would do it right here, is a place that aggregates all of that information into one place, which would be CoPilot. Site to cloud, this would be if I had a connection to a customer or partner on a VPN, I could see the routes I'm getting from them here. If I was running BGP to them, I would see my BGP routes here, and I would see the status of those BGP neighbors. So yeah, so long-winded answer to the question is CoPilot Cloud Routes. You can go nuts here and look at all of the different routes in all of your routing tables across all of the accounts that you have onboarded into the Aviatrix controller. So that's one thing I have to mention here is all of the information I'm getting here is because I onboarded an AWS account onto my Aviatrix controller. And so now the Aviatrix controller can see all that stuff. So if I've got another AWS account that I have not onboarded to Aviatrix controller, I'm not going to see anything in those VPCs at all. So yeah, that's how you look at your routes. Now, that EPIQ report I showed you too, also, it does it across other clouds too. So if I was having a problem getting from this guy here to this instance over here, I may not know anything. And this is actually true for me. Like I've spent most of my time working in AWS networking. I don't really know how to do networking in some other cloud provider, right? And if my company, Howdy Partner Corporation, acquired some other company that's using another cloud, and now I'm responsible for the network over there, that's kind of scary, right? Because now I have to, figure out a whole new world of networking in another cloud. With Aviatrix controller, the Aviatrix controller knows that cloud provider really well. So I can just rely on the Aviatrix controller to go do things and go troubleshoot for me. Like I can create VPCs in that other cloud without even logging into the console of that cloud, or I can do troubleshooting, which is nice. So that this app IQ here that I showed you, that's going to work. This destination could be anywhere. It could be somewhere in AWS. It could be somewhere in some other cloud provider. And Copilot's going to do its job. It's going to look at that other cloud provider's security groups and route tables, or the equivalent of it, and do the same analysis and figure out if there's
Hey,
a
Brad,
problem.
there's a question for Aviatrix, and it says, can Aviatrix Edge also connect to branches and retail stores without needing the software-defined one?
Well, yeah. The answer to that is yes. Yeah. So and that's actually a pretty good question. There is the whole issue of how do I get all my branches connected to more and more workloads are moving to the cloud. And so it used to be a problem of how do I get my branch connected to my data center? Now it's how do I get my branch connected to the cloud? And so when you're doing branch to data center, you had solutions like SD-WAN, right? Because there was no cloud in the picture. So you bought the SD-WAN devices, and you put one in the data center, and you put one in the branch, and you told them to talk, and everything worked great. Now that your workloads are in the cloud, in the center graphics cloud, and you're building a network backbone in the cloud, now you have an opportunity to do things a little bit differently. So instead of getting the branch connected to something, how about you take your cloud and you connect it to the branch? So that's the whole idea of this edge gateway here. So when I spin up an edge, I can spin up basically an Aviatrix gateway in a physical site somewhere, and the Aviatrix treats that as another spoke gateway. It's just another spoke in my network. It's another VPC, and I don't need some complex SD-WAN solution for the basic job of getting my cloud network extended to a branch, and now I've got one platform to use, whether I'm doing cloud networking or whether I'm going to the branch. So I mean that's actually a pretty big use case, I think, going into 2023. I think 2023 is going to be all about, the edge, right? And it's going to be all about what's the best way to get your edge, connected to the workloads in the cloud. And, the edge is going to have to get a lot more intelligent too, right? So these edge devices might want to talk to each other. So, I think there's going to be a lot of developments around edge networking in 2023. You'll see that from Aviatrix. You're seeing that from some other kind of newer players in the market too. There's a lot of excitement around kind of, I don't know, you call it Edge 2.0 or whatever, but I think, the traditional SD-WAN is probably a little bit long in the tooth now, and, kind of this new era of kind of cloud-centric networking. And so, yeah, we're happy to play a role in that. So we have these edge gateways you can deploy. Maybe next time we do another Howdy partner, we could just make it, I can show you guys how the edge works and everything. Or we could, do that some other time. But yeah, that's absolutely so one way that you could do it is just, try to reduce the number of different network platforms that you have to deal with to operate your business.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you for thank you for noticing that in the chat, Olabanji. Brad, we're coming up on time pretty soon. I mean, if you have anything else you could show us in like 10 minutes, it'd be great. Or
yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, I could spend
forever.
I could spend another couple hours here. I will show you. So let me see. What can I? So I haven't shown you most of this. Let me pick the coolest thing. Firewalls, public subnets, segmentation. Let's do this. Let's do intelligent dashboards. Let's go back to AppIQ, because we just did some troubleshooting, right? So let's take troubleshooting to the next level by going to AppIQ again. And what we've built is this new capability called Intelligent Cloud Analytics. This is basically where you build a dashboard that is specific to an application. So let me see if I have some smart groups defined. All right, first I'm going to define a smart group. So smart group is just a grouping of instances or a grouping of subnets that are all kind of related to each other. So I am running SAP in my business, so I'm going to build some smart groups for my SAP application. So I'm going to go here, smart group. I'm going to call this one SAP HANA because this is my SAP HANA database. All right, so what is in it? It's going to be a virtual machine. Well, all right, which one? Well, I'm going to use those CSP tags I told you guys about earlier. So CSP tag application. All right, so hopefully the developer tagged it right. SAP HANA, yep, they did, good. And save. So you can see it matched some already there. So there's my SAP database. Okay, looks good. Now we've got some other SAP app servers. So I'm going to call this one SAP app 1 and match condition application SAP 1. So that instance is there. Let's make another smart group for SAP app 2. And we're going to match that on a virtual machine that is tagged with SAP app 2. Looks good. Now we've got things like firewalls. Like I might have to send my SAP traffic through a firewall, right? So we'll say firewall and service, and I tagged my Palo Alto firewall with firewall. So there we go. And we also might have some authentication servers that our SAP system might need to talk to. So service authentication. There we go. Matched an instance already. All right. So now that I've got everything grouped, okay, cool. So I've got my groupings defined. Now I'm going to go to my AppIQ dashboard. I'm going to build a dashboard around this. So I'm going to call this my SAP dashboard. All right. So what groups do I want in this dashboard? Well, I want my SAP HANA database, this server, app server, that server. It's all relative to me. Let's put the firewall in there because the traffic runs through the firewall. And now other services. It talks to this authentication server. That's important. So I'm going to put that as like an other service that's important. If I had any branch offices with edges, I could put those in here, site to clouds, but let's just save this here. All right, so now what you can see is here's my dashboard, and my topology is only showing me what's relevant to this application dashboard that I just built. So no matter where I look here, I'm just going to see the stuff that is in this application. So I've instantly reduced all the clutter in my diagram here to just my application, which is really nice. You can see I'm only seeing my SAP instances highlighted here. So that's one cool thing. The other cool thing is it's drawing a matrix of latencies for latency interactions between these apps. So I can see that SAP HANA database talking to SAP app 1 and 2. Here's my average latency. And if I click on this, I can get some more information about this latency over time. I can get some information on the CPU and memory metrics of that Aviatrix gateways that are running that. And then over here, you can see that authentication server that they're talking to. I have a latency chart of that too. So I can see 36 milliseconds of latency between my SAP HANA database and the authentication server. So if someone comes to me saying SAP is not working really great today, what's going on? One of the first things I might do is come to this dashboard and say, okay, is there any new kind of latency problem going on here? And I don't have to worry about all that other clutter in my topology. I can focus all of my mental energy around the stuff that matters, which is just, kind of these specific instances and the latency between them, and kind of drilling down in there. So that's something that we're really excited about. This is brand new in CoPilot, and we're going to look at add a whole lot more troubleshooting functionality into these intelligent dashboards. But there's a lot of stuff in your infrastructure, and when you're troubleshooting a problem, the first thing you want to do is, filter the signal from the noise, get rid of all of that other stuff that doesn't matter, and narrow down on what does, and then start asking some questions like, what's the latency, and where is this stuff at? And then so we really think that this is going to help network operators help to quickly rule out the network, or maybe if there is a network problem, focus in on right where that problem is at for troubleshooting. If I go down here, I can see if there's any distributed firewall rules. We didn't talk about that today, but if there's any firewall rules that this application flows through, I could see that here in the domains. These are the number of threats from the threat database that are talking to these app servers in here. So a lot of additional kind of things to look at here. And you can build many views of this, right? This is just SAP. I could build a whole nother view for something else, and I can switch between these views and jump into my topology. If I just click on view and topology, it actually automatically populated a filter for me. There it did. See, look, it already built the filter for me on what my SAP servers are. And so now I'm just kind of looking at this specific application in my network topology. So that's kind of the newest, shiniest, coolest stuff that we've kind of seen today. The cost IQ, we looked at that. We looked at the intelligent dashboards in App IQ. We looked at, the topology and how you can deploy gateways. And we talked about the edge, and I can deploy that. And then all of the visibility and flow IQ here. I literally set this up in a day. Like this lab did not exist 2 days ago. And so in just 2 days, I'm able to have all of this rich information about what's running in my AWS account, which if I didn't have Aviatrix to get all of this in my lab, I'd probably be spending another couple of weeks reading blog posts, figuring out what services to use, how to stitch them together to get something like this. So that's hopefully, one of the main takeaways I would like our audience to take away with is just kind of the ease of use and kind of the value that you can get from a platform like this.
That's incredible. I can't believe you still could keep going. Like we're at time, and
Yeah.
you're like let me pick one of the 10 things I still have left.
Yeah.
What a stud. Yeah, and I can't. So really, and all you need to do to even start this is you just pop it in the marketplace and then fill out a few things, and then that's I don't know. That's crazy.
Yep, and you can run all of these gateways on T2 micro instances if you want.
Oh wow.
Like $1 a day if you just want to kick
nothing.
the tires and just play with it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's
That's
Wow.
amazing.
It really is. I'm not even a networking person, and I'm like,
I think that CoPilot has so many solutions underneath it, and one session is not enough to really dig deep into uh, all of the solutions. So I think we probably would need to schedule some other time to have Brad come again and just take us through one solution at a time. Let's really dig into it, see how it works, see what it does, and all of those cool stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to maybe show you guys all the edge stuff that we were talking about earlier. That would be kind of a fun little session, and you know, I could show you a little appliance in my hand and how it's connected from my house to my cloud network. That would be a lot of fun. We could maybe do something like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting year in 2023. Organizations are trying to do more with less, and they need to simplify things. And do you still have all those branch offices out there, and you've got your cloud networks, which are getting more and more complicated. So how do you troubleshoot these things? How do you get visibility? How do you secure it? It's really kind of a lot to deal with. And so hopefully, some people find value in using a platform like Aviatrix to help them with that.
If you're ever looking, I think somebody is here to offer you a job. Says,
yeah,
how can we hire Brad? Good job.
I appreciate that. Well, you know how to reach me, but I just want to thank everybody for joining me today, and thank you AWS for hosting
No, thank you
hosting this.
for
I mean, this is
joining us.
awesome. You guys have
yeah,
been a great partner with us, and we've done a lot together this year, like those immersion days. Olabanji, you've been phenomenal in helping us out with those immersion days, and we're going to hopefully do those again in 2023. And the immersion day is where you guys actually get hands-on. Like you saw me doing this stuff. You get a lab, and you get your own lab account, and you get a lab guide, and you get to kick the tires and try things out. And it's all free. All you have to do is like show up and log on to a Zoom. Um, so look for those too. The AWS and Aviatrix immersion days in 2023. We do them about once a month. We haven't scheduled them yet for 2023. So, but they'll be coming. So those are a lot of fun. I host those usually, and so it's a lot of fun.
yeah. Immersion days. I'm trying to find the link real fast. We got to jump off so we don't bleed into the other stream here. I dropped in at least the immersion days link.
Yeah.
But
Brad would post them as soon as the schedule comes out on his LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile is
oh,
here.
great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just connect me on LinkedIn, and you'll get all that info as soon as I have it myself.
No, that's great.
Mhm.
And hey, that's something maybe I want to be a part of now. Like help you host them with Olabanji or whoever. I'm literally like blown away right now.
There's like nothing like actually getting your hands on it. That's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
That's one thing that AWS is always very good about, is hands-on learning is the best learning.
Getting your hands cloudy.
Yep,
as they say.
exactly.
Cool. Well, any last, and I mean, I probably said this already, but any last things before we jump off?
Yeah, one last
That's
thing
probably it.
is the I think I've got it here, is the ACE certification. I don't know if this is it says 895, but you don't have to pay that. It's actually free. There's a code for that, but this is a networking certification where you can get the 101 on networking for AWS and the other cloud providers, as well as Aviatrix, and it's free. Ignore the 895 here. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn and I'll give you the code. But 6-hour self-paced course, all online. I mean, why would you not do that? So I think that I would encourage everybody to go get ACE certified, just to muscle up your cloud networking a little bit.
Nice. Well, cool. Yeah, so if any of you are interested in Aviatrix, AWS, immersion days, ACE certification, find Mr. Brad Hedlund on LinkedIn and visit Aviatrix either on the marketplace or their website.
Have an awesome holidays, everybody.
Yeah. Last thing right before Christmas time or whatever holiday you celebrate. Thank you all, and we'll see you all next week. Hopefully next week. But have a great day, everyone. Bye.